thank you for joining us today. My name is Jeffrey Olmsted. I am in charge of marketing here at Vertical. This is the 8th webinar in our series. So this is the last one that we're doing. Each month we've brought in experts from across the industry just to share insights and talk about how a cloud migration can accelerate your digital transformation and really help take your customer experience to the next level. All of our previous webinars are on vertical.com. Go ahead and find them there. And before I get too far along and talk about what we're going to be presenting today, I want to go through and introduce you to who Vertical is. So Vertical Communications is all about great customer experience. We're about great CX. We don't push one single vendor. Instead, we work through what the best platform is for you, and then we help you to deliver a unique offering. We call it the vertical difference for each customer. And what that means for us is that we're a comprehensive communications provider, from consultation to design, installation, support, service, upgrades. The way we work is we're your one-stop shop. We have experts who have decades of experience. Our experts know what your unique needs are and understand the needs of each client and help you to understand what will work and what won't work. Based on that, our solutions are not cookie cutter. We tailor everything to your specific needs, make sure you have the access to the latest technology, and really have the confidence that your communication system will fit your organization and will fit your goals too. I think the thing that the customers appreciate about us the most is that when we work with you, we really form a partnership. And that is to help you reach your desired outcomes and really ultimately to deliver a great customer experience. So that kind of gives you an idea of who Vertical is. Today, we're going to have a really fantastic conversation around driving ROI with the contact center. So today's discussion is going to be hosted by our expert at Vertical and solution engineer Curtis Firmanek. And then we're also bringing in a special guest, Christa Heibel from CH Consulting Group. She's actually the founder. She's been involved in contact center for a while. She's been involved since 1992 and has served in nearly every position in the contact center, from marketer to CEO. And through CH Consulting, she's built a team of experts with over 350 years of combined experience and has served companies like Microsoft, Nutrisystem, Deluxe, and many more. So we're really grateful to have her here today. And I think that you're going to really enjoy the insights that she has to share with us. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kurt, and he's going to kind of introduce our topic for today.
Very good. Thank you. Nice to be with everybody again today. Here again, and what you have in front of you is the some of the biography from Christa. Is there anything else you want to add, Christa, to what Jeff had mentioned outside of the starting in '92 and the 350 years?
I didn't know we gave Jeff that year, Kurt. I normally just like to say 25 plus years, right? And keep age a little more vague, but
well, it's nice to know that you got in and started in this at pre-K, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I was about 4, so and I come with a lot of years now, right? No, I think maybe just to take a minute to introduce CH Consulting Group, right? So I am a 25 plus year veteran, primarily to executive leadership and operational positions within the contact center. CH Consulting Group is 12 years old as of November, and we are a team of individuals that all look a lot like me, somewhere between 25 and 35 years, mid-level to senior level, executive level leadership in ops or IT. And we help clients with solutioning around both technology, strategy, implementation, and optimization success, as well as overall just operational strategy and workflow process improvement, P&L growth strategy, all of those things. So just sharing that, I guess, a little bit with the audience. So there's some framework to the topic that we're going to be talking about today.
Very good. And I imagine that things have been quite busy as of late with, the advent of COVID and the way that things have changed business wise, and more operations are rotating away from South Asia back into the United States, or having a blending of all those. So I imagine you've been busy as of late with all the transitions and the evolution of what's happening within the industry.
Absolutely. You've got the technology spend that is undeniable and very active within the space right now, and very critical, we would believe, to business success and future state for our clients. But COVID and some of the workforce shifting and business model changes at a global scale, as you said, have had huge impact, and nothing's really been settled back down, right? Whether we're still talking about domestic capacity where everybody went home, and now we see clients trying to bring employees back in and monitor that, along with just economic situations and cost cutting, looking to try to figure out how to get aggressive with offshore or near shore, but doing that with a lot of learning, right, from what happened during COVID. So it's definitely a time with a lot of opportunity and a lot of things happening within our space.
And it's also dynamic right now that it's very important for those of you that are viewing this to understand that with the dynamics of what's really happening within the industry, that it's important to be able to work with people with experience and vision to be able to help get you from where you are now to that next level, and understanding what that next level should look like. And that's where an organization such as CH Consulting can bring so much value and guidance to what you need to be able to do.
Yeah, Kurt, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the topic we're going to talk about today, because with the complexity of cloud technology and CX and CCaaS platforms and all of the things that the contact center is looking to accomplish today, the challenge isn't just for IT to select the right tech that meets technology requirements. It's really got to be aligned with operational process and workflow automation and business needs, right? And we see that as a really huge challenge within the space today, which allows this technology to be most optimized, which is exactly what we're going to talk about today, right? And what some of those are. So I lead us right there, but yeah.
No, that's exactly what we were looking to be able to. Terrific transition. In fact, Jeff, if you'll be kind enough to bring up the first topic we're going to talk about here. There's actually two questions here. We're going to combine those and expand upon all of this. And terrific, the culmination of what we've had for the prior 7 sessions. Yeah. This one really becomes the pinnacle of what we get to here. And that is, and it wrapped around a lot with this question here. What is the business case and your ROI, return on investment, for CCaaS? And as a result of that business case and ROI, what are some of the big core benefits that you could get from moving to the cloud? So, Christa, I'll let you expand, please.
Yeah. So I love that I get to be last in this series, because as Jeff said, you guys have been talking about what this, migration to cloud and all of the benefits that come with that, it sounds like, for a number of these conversations. And so obviously that in and of itself is something that we could spend an hour talking about. But I think assuming that the foundation of that has been somewhat laid, and we know that there are a number of business reasons why that transition makes sense today. And we would argue is really, in most cases, not really optional for organizations to stay competitive, particularly within the customer experience realm of what CX research and consumers are requiring from businesses and communication and interaction today. So then the real, challenge for businesses is to look at, because sometimes this can be a significant investment, right? Depending on where an organization is already sitting on their current tech stack, what that gap really is of what that transitional need really looks like. And so we really believe that when it comes to any technology strategy or major, even operational transformational scope and investment, there should be some return on investment, executive business case that can be made on that project or in front of that investment. So, one of the things, Kurt, that we do a lot of, and a lot of our very first time engagements with organizations is to go in and assess current state and lay out a strategy or a roadmap. Now that could be around labor, scalability, retention, and workforce optimization. It could be around technology specifically. It could be around operational performance, P&L gains. It could be around customer experience enhancements. But the process of understanding where they're at and where the business is trying to get to with an application of industry best practices laid over that, right? And the strategy always from us is based then on some ROI model. We are telling you to go do these things, and this is the expectation from a measurable KPI or P&L perspective that you should get from the outcome of this. And from our experience and perspective, the technology ROI argument is generally a very easy one to make. And when we look at return on investment modeling, we are very, very conservative. I think, we've looked at some research that says that, ROI, return on investment, is overhyped on some of this technology investment. We think the models are being overhyped, but the ROI itself is still more than justifiable in a lot of cases for our client in under 18 months, which is huge. And so it starts with really understanding current measurable performance levels and P&L data, and then really being able to map out from a technology perspective what specific operational process enhancements that are going to either, really decrease a cost per contact, right, in some way that this technology solution is going to bring to the table. And between omni-channel options to introduce like non-voice, self-service and digital transformation, improvement on just like WFM or WFO capabilities within technology enhancements. There are generally multiple ways that we can make a case for an organization that they're going to have this level of return on investment in that investment. But again, that's also based on the fact that the operational side is at the table and is truly going to be optimized at the end of the day on that technology, that the ops and the technology pieces are coming together in a way that's going to maximize that for an organization.
So the old style discussion of, well, I'm going to talk to the IT team and we're going to figure out kind of what you need in order to make this operate. It's just not like that anymore. It sounds like the entirety of the organization must be brought to bear of what's happening. It's going to require not only the IT team, but it's going to require, the sales component, for understanding what some of the drivers are on that side, if that's important. On the back end, support services, and what you're trying to measure for improvements there for, to your point, operational efficiencies within the actual contact center or the CX environment itself, with improving operational efficiencies within there, like you said, decreasing the cost per contact, that type of thing. So expand a little bit on when you get engaged, what's the breadth of the team that you really expect to be able to work with to be the most effective?
Yeah, well, see, so this gets so to the heart of like our evolving identity as CH Consulting Group in some ways, because to your point, when you go back, because now that we know how long I've been doing this, if we go back to the beginning, I started in a contact center where we manually dialed. So that's just an interesting fact, right? So I've watched the evolution of technology in this space, going from manual dialing, right, to EIS, DOS-based systems, and on, right? But it was voice-based. And when it was voice-based, it was a lot of telephony, some data integration. That was very techy, right? Like that is different today than when you look at some of these contact center as a service cloud products that are, you know, driving and are really now the table stakes of the contact center tech, you know, tech stack. When you look at those, the features within that are QMS, WFM, gamification. This is automation of operational processes. So what was once okay for IT to define technology requirements for and go out and shop and provide to operations to use as a support tool, that process of IT driving the requirements and selection process without operations at the table, we don't believe that works anymore. So if you have to know how operations is going to use these functions and features in this technology in order to justify the ROI. And I would argue the bigger problem in that is that if you're on an older platform, if you're running on older, more aged technology, if you're still primarily voice, even if you're running multi-channels of communication in your CX or contact center strategy, but you're multi-channeled out in your tech and not on a truly omni-channel platform, any of those scenarios requires me as an operations leadership to change how I'm running my business when you bring the new tech in. Now, that's either going to be a positive change or a negative change. And the odds of that having a positive CX impact, a positive P&L impact, are going to be greater if operations is sitting at the table with tech, that when operational business requirements are equal to technology requirements in that technology selection process, that is when we see optimized technology and highest ROI. So, you know, getting there is very hard for an organization to do, not just on the tech side, but on the operations side, if nobody in the organization has ever utilized, implemented, or built process around this type of technology before.
Fantastic. And if I, one more follow-up question on the ROI piece. Are there differences in the ROI that you get from something that is CCaaS or cloud-based compared to what we have expected for ROI for the older premise-based types of systems? Is there, you mentioned it's like an 18-month component where you can expect to get a full investment return. Is it because it's CCaaS based, or explain a little bit more the difference between CCaaS and premise for that ROI?
Maybe it helps to talk about where we see a lot of that ROI come from, right? So I think it's not so much about, we have scenarios where we have clients that have taken, you know, CCaaS technology and still put it in an on-prem environment, like in their own, right? Okay, so there is still cases for that. I think it has a lot, it's not, but the capabilities of what the cloud has to offer are included. And that is where I think that comes from. So for example, workforce management, right? Just even 6 years ago, WFM, workforce management, is probably the number one area where when we go into an organization, we uncover return on investment opportunities. Now, there's a number of reasons why that could be. Smaller and mid-tier organizations may not have a very sophisticated understanding of WFM or any at all, or they may be very manual. And so in really, it just, anytime you're bringing true workforce management functionality into an operation where it didn't exist, I can guarantee you there is going to be some significant return on investment, because and obviously the size of the organization is going to have significant scale on the impact of that. So that is where there's maybe been no technology at all, or maybe there's been a less feature-rich workforce management tool versus now one where one just did voice, but you were doing email and web chat and that was never integrated into WFM. And now you're upgraded to WFM and now it's not just voice. Now you have to learn how to apply workforce management applications, right, to these other channels, where it is shocking to me how often people are just not doing that today, right? So that would be an example, I think, around workforce management and capability enhancement that the cloud is brought to the table. The fast evolution of technology in the cloud is brought where organizations can expect to see ROI. Other efficiency gains can be in, decreasing average handle time, right? Making the technology stack more efficient, using things like AI that are going to support agent assist applications and things that are, again, decreasing that cost per contact. So oftentimes that type of capability was not in the older on-prem systems. This is all part of what is, been evolving so quickly over the last 5 to 6 years.
Excellent. And one more, I'm probably driving Jeff nuts with this, but what the heck, right? One more question and when it comes to WFM, the old school thinking was, well, unless you are at a certain threshold, like 50 agents, it just isn't cost effective to do it. So don't talk to me about WFM until we get to this point. Is there a basement like that, like there used to be anymore? Or
I mean, I think that still applies. I think it depends on like what is the cost of the workforce management. So I think we see a variance, right, within the tech market of where things, as features are very quickly getting rolled up into these solutions, right? I mean, 4 years ago, we were integrating WFM. All the CCaaS players had their favorite integration partner, but it wasn't part of theirs. Well, now through acquisition, merger, and development, you go to CCaaS, you get WFM. I mean, that's literally just changed. So I think it depends on the cost, the price point. There is definitely a point. I think it varies. I don't think it's just 50. I think it might be 30, might be 50. It might, for some organizations, be 80, right? Where depending on the cost of the tech and the size and the cost of that labor, where that ROI hits. If I have 30 agents, but they're very highly skilled, like licensed agents or medical professionals, I can probably ROI at WFM below 50, right? So I think there's some variance, but there's definitely that number exists somewhere for every organization, I think. And the manual best practices of just the cadence of WFM being put in place prior to the tech is really critical anyway, right? Otherwise, they don't really know how to use it.
Hence the reason why it's important to bring in an organization such as yours to get that evaluation to further understand all of that.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for all that. I've got a whole page full of notes here already, just from the first one. So thank you so much. Let's, if you don't mind, next slide, please, Jeff. And this is the next of 94. No, it's not that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that to you. Those of you that have been with us, you know better than that. So challenges, the moving to the cloud. What are the missing links? And there's a few of these we're going to be talking about. It's not all bubble gum and roses to get to the cloud. So there's going to be some things we need to address, and that are going to be hiccups along the road. And that's where it's important to have a person like Christa and her organization involved. And the first of those is, Jeff, roll it out. Integrating advanced technologies. And boy, this is a big one nowadays with AI and everything else going on as a part of all that. So what are your thoughts here around the integrating the advanced technologies? Help us define this.
Yeah, so this is a great topic. So I'm going to take these kind of 5 challenges that we're going to talk through, Kurt, from a little bit of an operational perspective, right? So we've talked about, you guys have been talking about over the series of your sessions around the benefits of the cloud, and a lot of those are feature rich, and integration is one of the benefits sometimes from going into cloud technology, just on the basis of how that is built today to be more integratable. But this topic matters operationally for a number of reasons. When you go in to a contact center environment, one of our goals is always to look to create what we call a single pane of glass for the agent. Okay, one system, ideally, that I log into for my workflow, for my processing, where I control everything that I need to do to take care of the consumer, right? To manage the CX process. Now, the reality is that is not reality in a lot of environments, right? Any of you on here that run contact centers know that when you have to have two different screens up at an agent desk, that's because there is a need for more than one application. But the goal is always to try to get there, because the operational impact and the ROI impact of that is it's easier to train agents up. It lowers your cost of training. It increases the ease of use for the agent, which has research showed an impact on turnover and retention, which has a real impact on P&L. So integration from an operations perspective is about the agent experience at one level. It's also about data, right? And so having access and to provide a good customer experience means we have to have access to the right data. And so again, we can make that really easy, or we can make that very difficult on that front line agent. And so we're always trying to figure out, how do we consolidate down how many things we need to log into and make that whole workflow and process more efficient. The challenges are, as we all know, there's a lot of still old legacy tech out there. We do a lot of work in the financial services industry, back-end core financial operating systems, EMS and healthcare can be real challenging. There's obviously a lot of movement within individual verticals where there are core operating systems. There's a lot of movement in those spaces as well, outside of the CX tech space, to also further develop and advance integration and get into the cloud, right? But like that moves at a different pace. And then you have clients where there's been a high level of customization done, either to an old legacy system or just custom built tools in-house that are not built maybe, or were older, right, with all of the right integration points in place. So these are really, really big challenges for organizations as they sit down and they look at transitioning to cloud tech and upgrading certain pieces. You really have to take time to sit and look at how is all of this going to come together.
So a lot of what you're trying to do is take, to your point, when a call comes in or some type of an interaction comes in, I need to, as much as I can, have in one screen in one area, someplace where I can improve the customer experience by being able to get a screen pop that's reaching out and getting data. Hi, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, you're speaking with Kurt. I see that you have an open ticket. Are you calling regarding that, and trying to improve that? So you're trying to get data in to do that. But then that's also making you more efficient, because now you're not having to start off with, thank you for calling, can I get your name, please? And you're sitting over here typing away and doing whatever else.
Yes. Yes.
And again, trying to drive all this, I do ride-alongs all the time as a CX solutions engineer. And to your point, that's one of the first things I want to do as a ride-along is I want to see the desktop. You have 2, 3, or 4 monitors going at a time, things like that. Yep. So what are some of the solutions that you try to propose to get past this initial challenge, which is to improve this agent experience as well as the customer experience along with that?
Yeah. So one thing before I talk about the solutions, if I could add to that thought, on the data, it's not even there's that data on the front end to provide a better customer experience, a more efficient workflow. Then there's also the data on the back end, right? The operational analytic pieces and performance management pieces. And we've recently I've been speaking actually on the topic of data and KPI management, because we find that easily 70% or more of our clients do not have access to all of what we consider to be the key performance indicators, the right data sets in a place where they can easily run the right types of reports and analytics to manage, the dashboard of the health of their contact center. It's not there. And when you ask organizations, do you have all the data and reports you need? They say yes. And I'm telling you, 70% more of the time, that's not there. So that integration on the back end is also a need in that. And so the solutions around that, there's a couple of different things. Obviously, it starts with strategy from our perspective. Anytime you're going one-off and replacing or upgrading certain technology without a very thorough, like, overall technology strategy, you are setting yourself up to run into integration or what we call redo situations, right? So we can come into organizations where ops is off, like investigating and trying to implement technology, and IT isn't even at the table. We do not recommend these things, Kurt.
No,
right?
no,
This is not a good thing. Or they're just piecemealing. There's no strategy, but somebody says, "Oh, we need to do web chat." And we had a healthcare medical client a year ago. They had 3 web chat tools. Okay. And none of it was integrated with the voice platform, which was a whole nother issue. But, they had gone off and had different departments make different initiatives for different applications. Well, none of it was integrated. Now you've got data sets all over. Ops doesn't even have access from a performance management to any of that. So having a strategy, even if it's fluid, coming back to assessing that, but looking out and knowing at any given time, what do we need in the next 3 to 5 years? What do we want this to look like, is going to just save time and money all over the place and set you up for better success on integration. Another quick thing I might mention there is CRM, right? So that's a whole, we could do a whole nother conversation on this, but CRM, by the nature of what it was designed to do, is a product that often is built to be integratable and to pull different data sets in and provide a framework in which an agent can have a more consolidated view of things to help across, right, what would otherwise be information having to come from multiple platforms.
And then the ability to be able to drive information that you've got within your CX solution, be able to write in data, maybe dispositions, notes, whatever else. That were the resultant of an interaction, and have it actually driven in to the CRM solution. So it's a part of that permanent record also.
Absolutely.
And you can use the data points derived.
That's right. Yeah, the CRM might become part of the data consolidation and reporting tool on the back end. Again, it all varies based on client need, but if you don't have that in place and you have, you need some integration opportunity, that may be an area to look at. We have a white paper coming out next month on a lot of what we're ironically talking about today. And our research said that 41% of contact centers have integration challenges today. And there's a lot going on with tech in that space. So this is a real serious challenge and opportunity.
Yeah. I'm surprised it's not even higher than that. Absolutely.
I know, I was too.
So that was one of the challenges. There's another challenge. Let's look at the next one, please, if you would, Jeff. And this really comes in a lot with what you see and discuss now with those 2 infamous letters, A and I, and that is balancing automation with a human touch. So much of what we're looking at is, you got you do these chat bots and do all this other stuff, but that's nice, but we're humans, and we like to interact with humans, or at least feel like we are. So if you would expand a little bit on automation and the need for us to still be human.
Yeah, this is sometimes a battle of customer experience versus the P&L. So
Okay.
I'm going to step back before I even comment on AI, and my commentary on AI may not be as popular as others. So we'll get there in a second. But
Okay.
let's talk omni-channel for a second, right? When we got all excited about omni, it was about this idea that research says, I always say, because of this little guy right here, that we never leave a second alone in our life. Consumers now have at their fingertips options for how they want to communicate with you as a company or organization. And research says the consumer wants to decide how they want to do that. So now, whether that's voice, SMS, whether that's email, whether that's web chat, or we get into other digital self-service options, it's like consumer choice. So the first problem I see with this idea of automation over human touch is effective omni-channel strategy, which I'm going to tell you, Kurt, I don't think exists today. Like, we'd like to talk about it. I mean, we have talked about omni-channel now for 6, 7, 8 years. I don't know. Again, I'm old. I've been doing this for too long. But we don't see effective omni-channel strategy within organizations. And I think we're going to come back to that topic in a little bit here. So part of this is about self-service and providing self-service and digital transformation. That's one way to create automation. But that, where we see fail on that, is that organizations just go out and create something and say, okay, go use this. And consumers don't adopt it. They don't use it because we're sitting in a bubble deciding what we're going to automate and not bringing in any voice of the customer on that. So omni-channel and automation is not a one size fits all. What organization A needs to do to be most effective with self-service and digital transformation is not the same as organization B or C or D. It might look more similar in a vertical from one competitor to another because of the types of calls and the interaction, but it is not the same. And you have to really understand what the customer, what your consumer, what your patient, if we're talking PX, wants in order to effectively bring automation to the table. Otherwise, you're just automating for the sake of automating, right? And that's where automation goes awry. Because now we've got a history of failed AI in some places, right? We've got a history of failed chatbots or into, non-voice channels set up where they're captive and they can't get out and it's not working. And now we have a failed interaction and instead of a successful lower cost per contact, consumer-driven choice of communication channel, we have a failed interaction, which just drives up voice volume. And by the way, we've seen that. We've seen in clients where trying to put automation in place has actually resulted because it was done so poorly, into more calls coming into the contact center, increasing the cost of operations. So lots of learning. I know we love AI. I know we want to get rid of and decrease as much of that human labor cost in the contact center as possible, because human labor is still the number one cost on a P&L in a contact center operation, but we are not there. Consumers have to be at the table helping to determine when and where to use AI. And for all the talk of it, and we love it and we're curious about it and we support it, speech analytics and agent assist seem to be the two most realistic, low-hanging fruit, highest, quickest, again, in general, ROI applications of AI. We're all going to continue to learn together, right, where some of the rest of this stuff goes. So strategy, and voice of the customer has to be at the table on that.
And what are the best means of engaging? Because that's brilliant. Because I mean, so many times I'm in discussions. It's like, oh, well, you know what? We're thinking about doing. We're not doing a chatbot. We'd like to do one, and we want to do something where we're we're about 25% of our interactions are kind of mundane. So we want to do self-service. And so we can see all this. So we're looking at it. A lot of our discussions from that element. But what you're talking about here is flipping the table, and let's actually take it from the customer perspective. What are they trying to gain? What are they trying to do? And make it successful. So you're tailoring it to them. What's the best means of being able to make sure you garner that voice of the customer? So when you do something, it truly is effective, and you're meeting the strategy you're talking about.
It absolutely shocks me. I sound so cynical today, but it absolutely shocks me, Kurt, how many large consumer-facing logo clients we have do not have a voice of the customer strategy. Aren't even doing CSAT right, which is a whole nother topic. So I think there is absolutely a time and a place to look at, what are high volume, easy transactional interactions and go to that for automation. Like, we completely get that, right? So there may be an argument where some of that from a business case just data wise makes sense, and we don't have to go out and do a lot of research to start to create a strategy around that. But what we have to do, whether we're doing the strategy up front or after the fact, is make sure we have that feedback loop in place where we're getting feedback on how these things are being set up, that we're asking at the end of the experience with the bot, how did it go? That we're creating a chatbot scenario where at any point in time it's not working for me, I can get out and get to a voice channel or get help in a different way, right? And so, customer surveys, I mean, I don't mean to be cliche, are really important. Like, customer focus groups are really important. I mean, that's voice of the customer. You don't have a robust and optimized CX strategy if you don't have any voice of the customer feeding into either the initial strategy or some feedback loop scenario, letting you know what is and isn't working, right? If you're talking about apps or portals, customer portals and things like that, like being able to use full focus groups on how those things are designed, or the prioritization of the functionality rollout, or again, at a minimum, once things are rolled out, using test groups for feedback. Like, those are huge opportunities we see organizations not taking advantage of. What's the downside? You're going to go build out a bunch of stuff that is not going to give you the improvement on customer experience or P&L that you're looking for if at the end of the day, the consumer just doesn't use it or it doesn't work.
Yeah, and how are you going to, why wait for a year and a half, 2 years to see the results to know whether or not you are going to get to that ROI or not? So you have to take those types of steps to get that immediate feedback to make sure you get to that ROI point that you're looking for.
Yeah. And customer journey mapping is another, term we like to throw around that I think is completely underused. And what looks like an efficient process internally doesn't always translate on the customer side as a good workflow, right? Or a good experience. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Excellent. Again, now filling up more of my pages. Here we go. Jeff, if you could, the next one, please. And this goes to something that you said you've done a lot of studying on, and you got some white papers coming on around, and that's the topic of data. But it's not just the gathering of the data and the utilization of it, but making sure that you protect it. So data privacy and security, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, probably. So this is probably the most technical one of the 5 kind of challenges that we're talking about. But our research, again, in our upcoming white paper, said that 98% of organizations have had a security incident in the last year. I know that I attended a compliance seminar that the FCC and the FTC were at just last spring. And, the type of issues that are coming up from a cyber attack and cybersecurity perspective, and other issues now with voice, right? People using AI to do voice authentication issues, and all these things are at an all-time high. So the challenge with the contact center is that there's so much data and so many different applications and data transfer points that it just Verizon did a data breach study and really said that the contact center in an enterprise is really like kind of a targeted area for cyber attacks. So again, this is just something that has to be really thought through and mapped out and considered in your overall technology strategy. And again, depending on the combination and in some ways this is almost easier in the cloud, because a lot of these cloud technology products come with a certain layer, right, of different security measures already kind of wrapped around them. But when you're integrating again back to like on-prem tech and that, again, we recommend again having a strategy in place, constantly reviewed and updated, testing done frequently, and engaging a third party to support that as much as possible.
And are there
and from an operational perspective, training, right? So that the staff is aware of all of the risks and trained on how to handle those things appropriately.
Very good. Now, are there certain, I mean, we've talked about the importance now of training. You mentioned the fact that that a lot of the CCAS platforms have got security components built into them. What are some other security measures that you see that we can and should implement to help mitigate those staggering number? 98% had a compliance issue. That's just nuts.
Yeah, 98. That the statistic was 98% of organizations that had a security incident in the last year, and that was a Verizon report. Yeah.
My goodness. So
yeah. I'm gonna go back to probably a non-technical answer to this, but third-party support, right? Because there's certain standards within the contact center space, right? PCI, HIPAA, SOC 2 now most like contact centers, we do a lot of work within the BPO outsource space. Like these are kind of bread and butter security standards that they've have had in place to be competitive for a long time. But sometimes that awareness is different within enterprise organizations. They don't look at that the same as some of the BPOs do. So I don't know that I specifically have more commentary on that. I think it would get into a more technical realm than I'm probably the right person to talk about, Kurt.
I understand. Yeah.
Some of these I'll go on and on and on about, though.
But it totally makes sense about the fact that those are, all those pieces you've just talked about really were table stakes in the BPO environment.
They should be. Yeah, we still see some gaps in that. But where BPOs had to deal with that, on-prem themselves, there's a lot of added benefit now to organizations when they're moving into the cloud, and these cloud technologies have already addressed some of that, right?
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Next question, Jeff. And we've already touched this to a degree with one of the other prior topics when you were talking about omni-channel and the fact that I got voice over here and I may have a couple 3 or 4 chats over here, and I had a separate email and so on and so forth, and this is interrelated to that, managing multi-channel communications. And I expand on that. And I guess the other thing too, just to throw it out there, do you see a difference between multi-channel and omni-channel in your definitions when you address this? So
yeah. Yeah, so we define multi-channel as having more than one channel in place. So voice and email, voice, email, web chat, voice and social media response management, right? Whatever those are. So when I mentioned omni-channel earlier, I was mentioning it from kind of a customer experience perspective and choice, right? So how do I want to communicate with you on this particular situation or topic? And so we get into some of that the automation pieces and where automation can replace the human piece of this. When we talk about managing multi-channel here, and again, multi being having multiple voice, web chat, all those other pieces, omni to us is when that's fully integrated. So when I can be in a web chat and hit a button and be transferred to a voice and all my information comes with, and I'm in one system and all of that is integrated, that to us is omni. Like that's the ideal state. So you have to evaluate what channels, where do we need to be multi-channel? And then the goal, I think, is to get to omni-channel where all of that is fully integrated. So on this slide, what I really wanted to address was the operational challenges of that in this transformation. And what I mean by that is contact centers are really good at voice. It's what we do, right? So we've got key performance indicators and measurable ways that we manage our cost per contact, our efficiency, our labor productivity, right? Our overall P&L and performance management that I think we still, again, shockingly, for all the years we've now talked multi-channel and omni-channel, not effectively transitioned into these other channels. So I referred a little bit earlier to like workforce management. Workforce management is a very specific skill set or cadence or workflow or process of resource management, volume to resource headcount, right? And we do that in voice. And if we do it in voice well, it has huge ROI and it makes a lot of sense. But organizations and our clients we see have not all applied those same principles to web chat or those same principles to email. So it's like this blind spot in the organization around that resource productivity, around that resource cost, because we're not managing those multi-channels the same way. I think it's just experience with all of this, right? Like we talked about way back in the beginning of how do you ROI any of this? Operations has to be at the table and needs to know how to use that technology. I think there's a gap sometimes in some of the basic reporting that these platforms bring to the table in the non-voice channels to support operations. But operations also has to know how to ask for and how to look at how to manage these other channels so that that ROI and that whole cadence is optimized, right?
So I had never really considered it this way. I'm going through all of this. So what are do you find that the existing solutions have got the right KPIs to be able to extract the data and get it to match up on the digital side, like with the web chat, email, SMS, with the voice, or are those missing and you need to bring in like a third party type of like a Power BI or something else where you're able to?
Both. Yeah, we see both. Power BI is the tool we see and use very often for that type of data consolidation, right? That on the back end to effectively have the right kind of reporting to operationally, that's that feedback loop in the contact center again, right? If I have the right data and reporting from these multi-channel, whether it's one platform or multiple channels managing it, then I can look at that efficiency. I can manage those KPIs and I can come back and keep tweaking the process or the system setup, right? Sometimes that's available. I mean, you can look at some of the tier 1 CCaaS platforms today where these functions like email and web chat and SMS and social media response management are all integrated into one. Those are going to be a little bit easier to support operations and applying these voice channel best practices over here and developing those reporting. But in a lot of cases, we have contact centers still using Outlook for email. So how do I
yeah.
operationally, right? So there may be some, but there is always a way to get there, right? They're generally, and now we're going back to some of the integration needs, right? And the data and analytic integration needs on the back end. But it's also just having somebody walk you through looking at how to do that, because if I've never done web chat and I don't know how to integrate that into my WFM technology or best practices, then it's really, I think, about guidance, right?
Gotcha. And so when you're looking at a solution, it's not you're not just looking at the front end capabilities on the digital side and what it's able to meet as far as those needs. It's just as important on what it's able to do on the back end with the reporting structure to give you the data KPIs to ensure that you are on the right track with what you are using those capabilities to be able to do.
Absolutely. And again, workforce management alone will justify the investment in taking the time to figure that out. Because why are we managing our voice agents to a certain productivity level? And then when I ask a client, what about your email, the people doing the email response, they're like, we have no idea. Like, we don't know how many emails a day. We don't know how long it takes to process an email. So then there's just bodies thrown over there, right? And so This is where operationally we have to take some responsibility to operationally create the right processes and the right thought processes to say, how do we want to structure this, based on this model we know and we have in voice, to get the same benefits, best customer experience, and best P&L over here out of these other channels.
Fantastic. Thank you. Got time for one more question, I think. We're close to the top of the hour, but let's see if we can sneak this one in yet.
All right.
We're good. We're doing great. So the last one is employee experience and retention. And of course, we saved the one that's got the highest cost for the contact center for the end here, right? Which is what you talked about earlier. So employee experience and retention, your thoughts there, please.
Well, I think this is obviously a hot topic, right? The labor side of the contact center is in transition. As we talked about, not literally globally right now, trying to settle into whatever new norm is for everybody. And so recruiting and retention of labor is a real challenge. Creating a culture where a lot of environments are working remote, but employees are still engaged so that they keep people and not have to turn employees over, which has a real cost associated with it, is a real challenge. So technology plays a huge part in that, particularly if I'm working remotely. That is my connection to the culture, to the company, right? To my supervisor, to my team. And so whenever we're looking at a technology transition, we have to be asking, what is the impact for the employee in this? We talked about single pane of glass. The more simple it is to train, the lower the cost. The more simple it is to use, the lower the cost per contact, the better we keep agents. So we're also seeing functionality specific to this being embedded now into some of these cloud contact center as a solution. Gamification, something that we've been talking about for years, but really was not adopted at a very aggressive rate, now sits in like Genesis, right? Platform, which is amazing. And so, but ops has never used that. There's so little gamification actually deployed. Again, how do we effectively operationally leverage this brand new feature that we've never really had before, right? But tools and technology that are out there in the cloud that are about ongoing LMS systems for ongoing training, other communication systems like Microsoft Teams and Zoom, gamification tools. These types of things have got to be in the overall tech stack in order to address this, again, biggest expense listen, we're spending a lot of money on tech, but labor again is still the biggest expense on that P&L. So what is the impact of that is really what this slide is about.
And you're trying to bring, you want to try to retain the agents, you want to make them happy, but you also want to make them a part of a team. And it's you're trying to hit that balancing point between, so many people want to look at me. I work from home, right? You can easily hear, right? You want to balance that with also ensuring, that I'm productive, but also that I'm happy, that I feel well connected, that I feel like I'm part of a team. And the more I have that connection, you're more readily available to retain me, which means that you're going to keep those costs down of churn and other things like that.
Right. That's right.
So you're talking about solutions that kind of bring all that coalesce together.
Right. That's right. And then I would say another element of that employee engagement can be the involvement, again, of the operations team in technology selection, strategy, and design, right? Because they know what they need. They know what their biggest challenges are. They can tell you, mentioned going and doing side-by-sides. That's a big part of our overall assessment process, is watching frontline and what they're trying to deal with and do. And you talk to an agent, they'll tell you what's working and what's not working. They'll tell you how to make them happier and more efficient, right? So, having a voice at the table can be really, really effective on new technology rollout and optimization and adoption, right? When there is a voice and employee engagement starts even on the front end of deploying that type of technology.
So voice of the customer and voice of the employee.
Voice of the employee, yeah.
Very, very important.
And obviously solid training, around new tech rollout is also really critical. So.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Jeff, I'm going to transition this back to you. I've had a fantastic time. I hope everybody else has gotten as much value out of this as I have. I have filled up multiple pages worth of notes, and understand the value that an individual such as Christa and CH Consulting can bring in helping provide guidance for you as you transition and consider transitioning into the cloud. Don't just go do this on your own. Get an expert involved, and hopefully, with the insights provided here, you can help see that with the value of Christa and her organization. Thank you so much on my end from this.
Thank you for having me.
Kurt and Christa, thank you so much for joining, and everyone watching as well. Really glad you jumped on the webinar today. We all hope you found it useful, and no matter where you're at in your CX journey, use these recordings and the series to help you kind of figure out where you're going. And remember that all of these are on our website at vertical.com. This one will be posted as soon as we're finished here. And you can review and share these with your colleagues. So thanks again for attending, and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Cheers.